to a brand new season of MICAST, MICA's official podcast. This is your host, Kasturi.
And this is your host, Pallavi. This season's theme is the Media Masters, where we deep dive into the rapidly shifting world of media and entertainment with guest speakers from the upper echelons of this fascinating landscape. Through each episode, we aim to bring our listeners an engaging conversation by uncovering behind the scenes processes, stories, and insights on the changing trends in their domain area. In this episode, we're talking production and directing.
In our very first episode, we are delighted to have Dar Gai, India based Ukrainian film director and co founder at Jugaad Motion Pictures, with us today. On this episode of the Media Masters, we'll be discussing the principles of storytelling, challenges that lay ahead for creatives, and her fascinating role as an intimacy director in Gehraiyaan, the recent film starring Deepika Padukone. Thank you so much for joining us today, ma'am.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. Really looking forward to your question.
Okay. So, first things first, let's just start with something that I think is on everyone's mind. You have a very interesting name, right? And we did a little bit of research, but I think we'd like to hear this story from you because I think you'll be able to give us a deeper insight. So, what's the story behind your name? Because your name is really unique.
So dar in my language means like a gift, a gift that you are like preparing for, let's say, I don't know, kings. And Gai in Ukrainian means the garden. And but the way how it came out, it's a shortened form from my name and my surname. It's just like three letters from there, three letters from there. But the main idea was that when you are uh, we live in society and we play certain roles that was told us. I mean, we were told to play by whether it's our parents or it's certain moral norms or in other social norms or religion. And we have a lot of, in a way, labels on ourselves, right? Whether I'm a girl or I'm a boy, or whatever I identify myself with, right? And that also will be looked in a certain light from the society. Then whether you are coming from India or you're coming from Ukraine, whether you are our person or their person, your religion. And I just wanted to, when people watch my films and they read directed by or written by, they don't identify me immediately. They can't just put a pin and say, oh, so she's a girl or she is a woman and she's not Indian, or she's Indian, or she's Ukrainian. Because then imagine, for those milliseconds that you are watching a film and you're seeing my name, your attention will go there. For instead of being in the space of the film, instead of thinking about the universe of the film, you're just involuntarily, your mind is going and trying to decipher what that person is and who that person is. And I just want something which is neutral, something which is gender neutral, something which is geography, religion neutral, something which is just there, wouldn't know what it is. And that, in a way, neutrality, I feel, gives us the right preparation to watch anything. It's like, when you go to perfume store and you have to smell coffee beans, right? So that you can just like kind of clear your nose from other smells or like other perfumes. So for me, it was something like that. And when I came up with it by just killing some other letters of my name, it felt very, very nice. It felt comfortable. It felt like every time when I start interview, the first question that people ask, how to pronounce your name. So my friend Dar Gai. And second name and second reaction is like, oh, we thought that you're a man, or we thought you're Indian, or we thought that you're something that. And I prefer that than any concept, like any misconception that are created in all our minds. Yeah. So that's, I guess, the origin.
Yeah, we were really like, when I started reading about this, I was really excited to hear it from you. Because
Hmm.
even like in India as well, our queer movement is picking up. And for the queer community as well, having
Hmm.
this kind of understanding of I can be who I want to be, I'm not going to let people's stereotypes kind of come in the way of you perceiving me. That was really important to me. So I'm really glad we got to like talk about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, for me, just like the name, it has no gender, no country, no smell, no taste.
I love how so much of your journey with India has been about the stories that you experienced, the stories that you told people as well. And since we're on the topic of stories, let's like dive into the next question because I think it connects well. So you've always experimented with storytelling, whether it's your feature films or some of your music videos. You've worked with some really cool artists who I think a lot of people in our college are really excited about, like Prateek, Kuhad, and Ritviz. And these like videos as well, they did very well in the lockdown, and some of them became trends as well. Each depiction for each music video was very unique. So
Hmm.
when you are presented such a thing, like what is your inspiration behind such a narrative when you're given like, okay, this is a song that we want to make a music video for?
I think the main idea is, I think it depends on the artist. It depends what their vision is. With Kasoor, I remember when I heard the song, I had the concept for the video much before the lockdown happened. And at that point, Pratik was not sure how it will turn out to be and whether the fans will send the right videos. And then, of course, when the COVID happened and the lockdown happened, it was the only way how to do music videos. So then he remembered my idea. He got back. He's like, "Should we do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course, let's do that." And um, I was really curious whether the way how I see it, the way how I imagine it to be, whether it will turn out to be that way. Because of course, when you try to gather different footage from non-actors from all over the country, you don't know whether the outcome would be the same how you designed it. So then I realized that the way how I need to ask questions need to have the certain graph, right? Otherwise it will be like any other I don't know, scoop whoop questionary video, right? So I believe that each and every video can have whether it's music video, whether it's an ad, can have a very clear dramatic arc, right? Beginning, middle, and end. Certain roller coaster of emotions that will be taking our audience through. So, how I write scripts with first and second and third act, I was trying to design the questions that I would send to these people to emote to, following the same structure. First to be introduction, then fun question, another fun question, then slightly deeper, then a really deep question, then take them slightly away from the deep question so that they feel more comfortable. Then a couple of more questions, and then to hit them with a really personal question, and then to take care of them by having some slightly light following up questions. So I've done that experiment with a couple of Pratik's friends and my friends, and 2 videos out of 10 people were kind of like crying there. So I knew it will work out. And then we sent it to all the fans, and I think I received more than 1,000 entries, and every entry was around 5 minutes. So it took a lot of time to go through each expression and choose it. That's an example of a particular video, but overall, how I work is that first I meet an artist and I ask them what's their vision for the song. Do they have any references? Do they have any visual references or just even vibe references? Um, what kind of stories they would like to tell? Do they have any images in their head that they had when they were writing it? And then on the basis of that, I keep listening to the song over and over again, and I'm thinking of different stories that people can relate to. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the lyrics itself, because I think the song can have one meaning, and you as a creator, as a storyteller, can create more subplots to the same song without just getting repetitive and visually showing what you hear in the lyrics.
That is actually pretty interesting the way you said that, a song can have different interpretations, and the audience can also get influenced in way like when you listen to the song just by itself, you think of something, but when you look at it with the video, it adds a whole new layer of meaning to the song. So that actually brings us to the next question, where you at Jugaad Motion Pictures, you've produced feature films, music videos, TV series, drama series. So, given that you have a very specific creative process, what are some of the major challenges that you think lay ahead for creators or production houses in the coming years?
It's a great question. I think the biggest obstacle that all of us will feel as creators is the lack of really young and how should I say that will sound right? And okay, fine. Someone who's just not lazy, like writers who want to dedicate their time to the craft. Because you see, with filmmaking, it's such a it's a new form, right? I mean, filmmaking exists it's a very young profession. And nowadays also, because of the way how we interact with our phones, with cameras, with social media platforms, we want very quick result, and unfortunately that quick result can't happen if we want to achieve something with really good quality. So I have a lot of people coming up to me and saying, I want to be a writer, or I'm a writer, but they hardly have read anything in their lives. They have hardly written anything. And I think filmmaking is a very demanding profession, where you don't have time for your family, you hardly have time for your friends. It demands you continue polishing your skills, continue writing, or directing, and watching films, reading books. And I definitely think that the attention span that we have right now developed as, I guess, generation, can create a lot of obstacles to the high quality art that otherwise could have been produced. So I would say yes. So lack of dedicated writers, and overall attention span in generations. I guess that's a big obstacle, because it's an incredibly good time for filmmakers. I remember when I entered industry um, around 10 years ago, it was completely different. You only had independent films and Bollywood films, which has only theatrical release mostly. And now you can't even find AD who is free, because everyone is working either on series, or on a feature film, or on some YouTube videos. So there are a lot of opportunities that one can have. But I would say that now we need to concentrate on quality.
I actually want to talk about this a bit more because you said something very interesting. I think it's hard for us to make a conscious decision to engage with media we're not comfortable with or not familiar with. We kind of like we will always stream like Friends. Let's just watch Friends again for the 10th time instead of seeking out something new, right? But I want to ask you about that because for example, something you do on your Instagram is your captions are recommendations for new media to consume, whether it's a new book, a new song you liked, a new concept you even were engaging in. I think that's a very interesting way to recommend things to people. But as like a media consumer, how do I push myself to seek out something different? Because there's such a deluge of content out there. And sometimes then you have like decision paralysis. So what do you think is the best way to seek out new things?
I think the most important thing is just to set up like the challenge for yourself, knowing that no matter what, you have to read 10 minutes a day, minimum 10 minutes a day, no matter what. And to make a list of 15, 20 books that you will have to finish during the year. So let's say at night when you're really tired and you're like, okay, let me just like watch that one episode. But you remember it, no, wait, I haven't done that promise of mine, the challenge of 10 minutes of reading, and you have to do it. And again, the books that you will be choosing are not just the books who are recommended by your friends, like, oh, it's an easy read. No, to go back to again classics, because at the end of the day, we are standing on the shoulders, of the giants, right? But we need to know those giants. Mm, and I think the idea of pushing out your brain and, I mean, your mind to adapt to something that otherwise, mm, it doesn't feel comfortable in. For example, I don't know, if tomorrow you will start reading, I don't know, Joy, so you will start reading even, I don't know, Midnight Children. When you see Rushdie's Midnight Children and the amount of paper used for it, you're like, will I be able to go through it or not? But I'll just go step by step, 10 minutes a day, no matter what. Same thing with films, right? To make a list of films that you have to finish in that particular time, let's say in 6 months, and to take that list from the recommendation of the greatest minds of any filmmakers that you respect, right? And then again, when you have time, you don't think, oh, I'll just finish another I don't know, episode of your favorite show, but you will go back to that list because you know that you haven't even gone through half of it, right? Because then the quality of your conversations, the quality of your ideas will be completely different. Because all of us, we live, whether we want it or not, whether we have seen certain films or not, we are products of all those incredible minds that were living through the centuries, centuries, and centuries. Whether it's writers, philosophers, filmmakers, and we can't be original if we don't know them. I had a friend who was wanted to be a writer, and he always told me, like, I don't read books. I'm like, yeah, but how will you write? Like, yeah, but I just don't want other books to influence me. And it's such a scary state of mind, because it it puts so many restrictions around you. It's like to say, I want to, yeah, I want to be a writer, but I don't know any languages. I can't speak, right? Because for us as creators, we need to know the languages, the tools which were used around us, and to take something from it and interpret it in our own way. And basically, less we read, less we consume that enormous pool of knowledge that we as kind of as humans got, right? Then less original and less unique ideas we will be getting. Yeah.
You actually spoke about like if what I understood from it, it's like you have to expand your horizons if you actually have to grow as a creator. So you have to consume media, and not only like different forms of media from different cultures or anything, which kind of leads on to my next question, which is that uh, given that you creative people often find it very difficult to put forth an idea to people with different cultural contexts, like especially I would say if that's like in your case. So have you experienced something similar due to a language barrier or a gap, or where you have found it a little difficult to place yourself in the cultural context, or especially India, in a country like India, which has like such different cultural zones and ethnicities and languages?
Mm, you know, Somehow I never felt that I was either like out of place or I couldn't understand the context, because um, I was when I was studying philosophy, I was really interested in philosophy of language and structure of language. And if you see, no matter how different the languages are, they always represent the psychology of the nation, and overall they are always function according to the structure of human's mind, right? So I think once you understand that, once you understand how we perceive the feelings, how we try to find the right words for the feelings, then you understand that all the languages, even though the forms are different, but the structure, the core are the same, right? The core of it is the same. And no matter how different we are, no matter how far we live from each other, we have our bodies, we have our mind, we feel more or less the same things, we desire the same things, we we want to be loved, we want to be taken care of, we want to um, we feel suffering, we feel anxiety. So everything is just coming from that human need. And I think when you understand, you feel empathetically, you can relate to that. Then doesn't matter where we are, right? The forms look different, but the essence is the same. So I guess that's why I could always relate to it. Let's say, right now we're writing the show which is based in Punjab, in a small town in Hoshiarpur, and the family is slightly more conservative. It's a joint family setup, and it's something that I could relate to. I was growing up with my uncle, with my aunt, with my parents, with my grandparents in the same house, and the frustration of our main character, who is just this young Punjabi girl, is very similar to how I was growing up being a teenager. So I think if we are just being honest ourselves and we're looking deep down into who we are, where we are coming from, then all of us are the same, more or less.
That's actually a very beautiful sentiment, that deep down there are certain shared human emotions or sentiments which just cross borders, and they are no, you can't actually define them by language or nationalities as such.
Exactly, and I think this is the time for us to understand that and to realize that. I mean, all of us, we know that religion and borders and different political systems, they created to differentiate us, right? To we help us to survive in certain circumstances and to guide us. But I think more independent we become, more we realize that it actually doesn't matter, and we can survive also with any structural forms which are being put on us, because all of us, we are the same.
I agree with Kasturi. I think it's a very sweet sentiment. And I think that's something like we should have that mindset in life. It becomes easier to just make friends with new people.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a new project of yours. I think that's the thing you've been busy with for a while now. So, one of your recent roles has been as an intimacy director to Deepika Padukone in her upcoming film Gehraiyaan. And it's very interesting. In fact, when we were doing research right at the start, when we typed in Dar Gai, we'd get like, okay, filmography, IMDb. Now, when you type in Dar Gai in Google, I don't know if you know this, the first thing that comes up is intimacy director. So, your Google search results have changed. but yeah, but the question I really wanted to get to is that it's piqued the interest of a lot of people, this new role that you've taken up. It's getting a lot of press as well. And the filmmakers also giving you a lot of credit for the work that you're putting in, because it's hard doing that kind of a role. So could you tell us a little bit about what the role exactly is, and what is the kind of shift that's happened that you've seen with the inclusion of these roles in cinema?
No, absolutely. Um, for me, intimacy director is like architect. You have a plan. You have a plan of the building, and you need to be there because without you, the vision of the building will, can be compromised maybe in a way. And you have your team and you explain your vision for exteriors, for interior, the reasons behind that. You work closely with the planners, with the workers, with the designers. And intimacy director is something similar, that you are there to make sure that your actors are safe. You are there to make sure that actors understand what they're participating in and why. They understand the context, they understand the script, they understand the emotion, and you're taking care um, of yeah, I guess of their understanding what they're doing and why. And you are making sure that each and every person on the set understands what in a way the film about and why you're doing what you're doing. And it's like they are choreographers, right? Dance choreographers that you will invite for your film or for your music video, or you will call for an action director, right? Who will decide whether to involve stunts or not to involve stunts, who will make your actor feel comfortable. And intimacy direction is the same. Mm, your first stage, you will understand what exactly the director wants, whether to creating physical chemistry between characters, whether it's just emotional involvement. Then you will understand the brief. You will then brief the actors. You will talk to actors. You will understand their fears, their apprehensions, and on the basis of that, you will design workshops. You will take your actors to the workshops, and you will create certain tools, certain language that later on you can also use during the actual shoot. And then during the shoot, you will be um, making sure that they are comfortable, making sure that the crew is comfortable, making sure that um, what they do on the screen has direct connection to director's vision. And I think also what's important for us to understand that intimacy direction is not just about, I don't know, like physical involvement, right, or just like kisses on the script, but it's also emotional involvement. The idea is that our main responsibility as an intimacy director, how will you translate those butterflies, those feelings that we experience while looking at the person whom we love or maybe sometimes hate? How do you create that range of emotions on the screen using cinematic tools?
That actually, the first time I remember hearing the term intimacy director was for the show Sex Education on Netflix, which got very popular. And when I watched that clip for the first time, that was really interesting about how the sensitivity that is required to deal with such issues is very important, because it's a very intimate moment for the actors and everything. And it is very important for that aspect to be dealt with very sensitively. Okay, so this is our final question from us, which is, what is your advice to us as people who will be involved in creating ads in the future on making people not press the skip ad button?
Mm, oh, there are a lot of suggestions. First, definitely read, read, read. Guys, if you just don't read, just don't even enter the field. There is just no point for that. It's a very toxic environment. Making ads, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's time consuming. It's nerve wracking. So yeah, let's go from the beginning. So definitely you're reading a lot, because only by reading you will understand the human's emotion. If you don't read, if you haven't read a single book in your life, I don't think that you can create an ad which millions will relate to, because you don't know what emotions you're talking about. And even though you, let's say, you have experienced certain things in your life, fine, and you will get away with one ad, with two ads, with three scripts, but not with four and five, because at some point of time it becomes a profession, it becomes um, we're dealing with human nature, right? So we need to understand that human nature, and understanding human nature only we can to understanding human evolvement through art. Therefore, paintings, history of paintings, overall history, anthropology, philosophy. You have to have, if you want to make a mark, you have to have interest in that. Otherwise we'll be just, creating average, oh, buy this chocolate hat, which can be fun your first year of internship, but then it just becomes so wrecking. So, guys, reading, listening to complicated, interesting music, watching complicated, interesting films, which can be boring, but you need to train your mind. You need to train your mind, you need to train your intellect for that, because again, only during your boredom you will be coming up with your best ideas. Sometimes like I start listening to different podcasts while I'm showering, and um, I keep taking breaks, in those moments when I'm bored or I'm waiting for something. I'm not taking my phone, because during that time this is the space for my brain to come up with the idea. So we have to leave that brain space for that. So yeah, so reading, listening to music, listening to films, having interesting conversations. um, then another, I think, very important thing for you guys would be to stand your grounds by choosing the right people to work with. Your internship can be anything. 3 months you can suffer. Great, you will see the different side of it. But when you're joining someone, make sure you're joining someone you're comfortable with, who are not toxic. Because ads can be agencies can be extremely toxic environment. You will have to write a lot of scripts. Some of your scripts will be taken by other people. And I mean, I had several experiences with people who joined us later on, and they were telling us what was their experiences working in advertising. So for you, it's important to stand your ground, to join company which you feel comfortable taking care of and non-toxic. I think that's very important. So demand that, demand that respect. Third thing, be open to criticism. Even if you think that your idea is the best, most probably your idea will be the worst. Every time when you feel that urge, no, no, but I will prove it's good. No, don't prove. Make people feel that. Because if three people are saying that can't relate to your idea, maybe there is something not that great. Maybe you can polish it. So keep questioning yourself. Don't doubt yourself, but keep working on your idea. Because even if you met nine weird people who don't have any taste but who can't relate to your idea, there is a way how to make them feel for your idea as well, even if it's complicated, right? So yeah, so polishing your skills, choosing non-toxic environment, continue growing as a creator, as filmmaker, taking criticism, creating a safe environment around you with whom you can share your ideas and who can also give feedback with care. You know,
I think our batchmates will get some great advice from that conversation we've just had. Speaking of our batchmates, we actually were able to reach out to our classmates and say, hey, we're getting a really cool person and we want your questions for them. So we have just a couple of questions from the students themselves. The first one is from our batchmate Veda Dhruv. She asks, how much of the actual production goes according to pre planned activities? Has there ever been an instance of it changing completely during the shoot that turned out well?
I mean, it's thank you for the question, Veda. I think it's an interesting um, question to answer. Well, I think in my case it's slightly different. I try to prepare myself as much as possible. I try to work on a completely locked script. I don't like changing script on the location. So I I work on the script as much as possible. I don't rush in when it comes down to the script. Even when I work with the client, I want to give him the script that I'm happy with and he's happy with, and then we can go into the next stage, which would be pre-production, that I'm choosing the exactly. I'm involved in everything. Like I want to know what colors we'll use for the wall. If it's blue, is it this blue or darker or lighter? And because all of us, we need to be in the same, like the entire team needs to be on the same page. They can't read your mind. Your cinematographer needs to know what's your references, what's your editing references, what your production design references. And for that, you as a director, you need to, and producer, you need to prepare yourself. So like my process is, I always have meetings with everyone when everyone is asking questions, when we discuss each and every detail of the project. Then script is locked, then I'm working on shot breakdown. Then ideally after shot breakdown, I will also work on storyboard. My team meanwhile will prepare the mood board for each and every scene, references of the colors, references of the locations, so that I can open direct conversation with my cinematographer, showing him how we imagine this to be. And then, of course, on the set, once all this is ready, you can experiment, because if you experiment, you don't have fear. What if the edit won't come together? What if it won't work out? Because you all have always have that, backbone to rely on, which is your shot breakdown. And then, if you execute this, you will have your project. The issue comes when you come on set and you're like, I'll figure out something on the set. No, on the set you will have so much pressure, so many people will be asking you questions that it will be very difficult to figure out what to do. So to homework as much as possible, then it will be more or less stressful experience. Of course, a lot of things will be going not as per plan. Rain will be there. You can't do sync sound, or I don't know, the sound of the train or the heat or AC. So there will be always things going off. But you just need to be prepared for that and have, I guess, plan B and strong team which can adapt and be flexible to any new change.
We have actually another very interesting question from Shairi Bhattacharya. So she asks, what do you think about the way that intimacy has been portrayed in Indian cinema and shows? Like with the euphemism of flowers and bees, portrayed in very subtle and it's hinted at in very different ways. But what is your opinion of that?
I mean, you as a creator, you're always choosing the language that you want to use. I don't think that any language is right or wrong. It's always expression of how you perceive the love, right? For example, two flowers kind of like kissing each other. It's a metaphor for that director, right? The way how they see it and the way how they want to portray it. And I don't think that you can say that um, eh, something is not right or something is not real. Sometimes you can make real films, you can make not real films, because that show is always represented by your inner world, how you feel, right? Because what is a metaphor? It's a always representation of your own language of something, of certain phenomena, whether it's love and hatred, etc. It's a language. So we are always free to choose the language which is closer to us.
I think that's a lovely answer, and it helps us also understand what's changed with films over the years. So next on to our last segment, which is rapid fire questions. So Kasturi and I will go back and forth, and we'll just ask you the questions. So I'll just start. What song or artist do you wish you could have made a music video for?
I don't know, any classical composer.
Okay. Music videos or feature films?
Everything.
A filmmaker whose work you admire.
Everyone everyone who had that desire and brave nature just to go out and to make anything. Because guys, when you come on the set, you will feel bad for all the filmmakers that you shadow and say, oh, I don't like that film. Oh, like that was so great. When you will listen, you're like, oh my god, even to make a 2 minutes film is so difficult. Even like the worst film in the world, uh, the length of 2 hours, you should just touch their feet, eh, respecting them, putting things together. This is what I feel every time when I come on set. So I guess everyone.
Okay. Your favorite feature film, but now you can't say every feature film now. You have to give us an answer.
Everyone, each and every film that touched my soul. I mean, honestly, I can just go on and on. Recently I watched Hand of God, Genius Sorrentino. I love Sorrentino. Youth, I love Sorrentino. Great Beauty, of course, Fellini, which is Eve Vitellini, or Nights of Cabiria. Um, then, I mean, of course, Thomas Anderson. Then recently, I watched again 400 Blows, Truffaut again, Genius, Godard. Recently, again, watched Tarkovsky's Ivan's Childhood. Incredible art. So yeah, I think I can just go on and on with the list.
Okay, final question. Just like how you do on your Instagram, what's a recent book you would recommend?
Book of the day. um, oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's Herman Hesse, Damien. That's a revolutionary, the most inspiring book for me for the last month. They want, yeah, Damien, and again Hesse's Damien and Hesse's Beads Game, or Game of Beads.
Okay, thank you so much for that recommendation. I'm sure we'll actually go and check those
Yeah,
out. We
really
have,
Damien
oh
is
nice
my
all
list.
you
god.
have to read. All you have to read.
Yeah, you've
Damien.
given us homework basically. You've given us this list of things, this media
To
that we need to
watch
go
and to
consume.
read.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a great time.
Thank you for a great conversation, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Media Masters. Make sure to stay tuned for the next one.